27th parallel on America's haunted highway, it's Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange. Um, yeah, there we go. Start talking. Well, what's weird is I.
Hmm. Okay, what do you want me to say? You want me to talk about how I'm wearing this awesome Pixelated Plays t-shirt from our buddy Corey? What do you want me to say? Okay, there's me.
Yeah, there we go. Well, sorry, sorry, gang.
What'd you do, dum dum?
I don't know. The settings got all messed up, so
Oh
there's
no!
that. Yeah, let me just
Oh
make sure.
damn.
Yeah, there we go. So,
Okay, so should we start the video over and just
fuck it.
jump right into where we were at just now?
Nah.
Because I
Let's
mean,
just go. Let's just go
well,
from
anybody who
here.
goes to watch it's gonna miss like no audio for the first 10 minutes, though. Well, 15
Uh,
minutes at this point.
I'll put a description on there. In the description, like, hey, fast forward to, 15 minutes
Okay.
43
Would it
seconds.
would it be that big of an issue to stop it and just start it again real quick?
No, I mean, we probably could.
I just don't know if
So,
anybody's gonna stick around that long, or fast
yeah.
forward to it. We can skip the intro stuff and they'll just get it on the audio, I guess.
Yeah, let's just get it on the audio. Okay, hold on.
All right, hold on, everybody. If anyone's gonna watch it, if we keep doing it.
Oh, nope, because the minute you restart the stream, it goes right back to where it was. So,
Oh, for real?
yeah. So, fuck it.
Then
I'll just put it in the description. So,
yeah, okay. Um, that sounds good to me. Can you do like a cover photo or something and stick that in there?
oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
we can do
sweet. We'll
that.
just do that.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's double check
Fucking,
here.
fucking technology.
I'm telling you, fucking what?
You know what, Kevin? Way to jump on late, and then like 15 minutes into it. Oh, hey guys. By the way, no audio, man. Where were you?
What are you?
Where were you 13 minutes ago, Kevin?
He did message us about 6 minutes ago on my phone, and I just didn't see it. So,
Oh, sorry, Kevin. My bad.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh man, all sorts of technology issues this episode. I had to restart my router, and that took forever. Then Discord wanted to update, and I'm working with a new mic on this episode too. My golly jeepers. Well, anyway, for those of you who missed the very beginning of the episode, let's see here. I've got insomnia. I slept 2 hours last night. I had a really bad dream that my parents' house had about 7 or 8 front doors, and someone broke into their house, and then the police ran over my wife. Preston, you've got rot gut because you've been drinking moonshine.
Yeah.
Lots of it. Together with you and I and your Mason buddies, we raised over $1,600 for Special Olympics. We did the polar plunge, and here we are talking about the news. And it looks like old Pablo Escobar's hippopotamuses are at it again, and this time in Bogota, Colombia. they're proposing transferring at least 70 hippopotamuses that live near Pablo Escobar's farm, all descendants of the four originally imported from Africa illegally during the late drug lord's 1980s reign. Anyway, they're planning on trying to ship those over to India and Mexico as part of a plan to control their population. So the hippos are territorial and weigh up to 3 tons and have spread far beyond Hacienda Napoli's ranch, located 200 kilometers from Bogota along the Magdalena River. Environmental authorities estimate that there's about 130 hippos in the area, and Antigua province, and their population could reach at least 400 over the next 8 years. Well, the hippos and also the ranch have become a bit of a local tourist attraction since the kingpin was killed by police back in 1993. But the problem is, scientists are warning everybody that hippos don't really have any natural predators in Colombia and are a potential problem for biodiversity since their feces change the composition of the rivers, which could impact the habitat of manatees and capybaras. Last year, Colombia's government declared them as a toxic invasive species. So holy crap, pun intended, what are we supposed to do now, Presto? Send them somewhere else and make them be India's problem, I guess.
Well, so I don't know. I don't know that India is the best place to send them because in their natural African habitat, they don't breed very good. I mean, you get like one calf every couple of years, and it takes them forever to reach sexual maturity. And that was the problem with old Pablo Escobar, is they, had, lush, swampy grass areas and started fucking like jackrabbits and popping out babies
Big
left and right. And then, the people in Colombia had never seen a hippo. And they're like, oh, what the fuck's this cute little water cow looking thing? And let's eat it for dinner. And then hippo meat contains like meningitis or something like that, and so people were like getting sick and dying, and it became like a big issue. So you're basically taking them from one tropical environment and putting them in another tropical environment, because India, they have pretty lush jungles. There's a lot of watering holes and a lot of greenery for them to eat. Honestly, fucking just ship their asses back to Africa and like put them out in the middle of like the fucking grasslands where there's not much to eat. They'll be fine. Let Mother Nature work its course, do her thing.
Huh. Yeah. I did a quick Google search. I don't see anything outright that says the hippo meat has meningitis, but I believe you because I can't argue the fact.
Yeah.
Oh, hell. Well, speaking of eating things, Preston, I think we talked about it plenty of times before. But are you a big fan of the idea of eating crickets?
I've read papers on people that are doing nutrition studies where they take crickets and mealworms and they grind them up into a powder and then make like a hamburger patty from that. I'd be okay with that. Okay. I'm more of a texture guy, so if it's like crunchy, and I'm sitting there picking out cricket wings from my teeth, I'm not down for that. So, but cricket paste, if it seasoned right, I give it a go.
Okay. Well, I just happen to have in front of me here a tube of Into Life Kickers jalapeno garlic roasted cricket snack that Shayla gave me for Christmas. The reason I bring it up, buddy, is because over in Berlin, an ice cream parlor has expanded its menu with a skin-crawling offering. Cricket-flavored scoops with dried brown crickets on top. The unusual confection is available at Thomas Michelino's store in southern Germany's town of Rottenburg am Neckar. Michelino has a habit of creating flavors that are far outside Germans' typical preferences for strawberry, chocolate, banana, and vanilla. And in the past, he's offered liver sausage and gorgonzola cheese flavored ice cream, as well as a gold plated ice cream for about $4.25 a scoop. Well, I don't know how it would taste, but I would definitely give it a shot. He
That's
says
a
he can now produce
that's
the
a no
cricket
from me,
flavor.
dog.
Now that he can produce the cricket flavor due to a European regulation that allows the use of insect food, he's able to offer a very unique new flavor. Under the regulation, crickets can be frozen, dried, or used as a powder. The European EU already allowed migratory locust and flower beetle larvae as food additives, also reported by the DPA. Michelino's ice cream is made of cricket flour, heavy cream, vanilla extract, and honey. The cricket flavor is due to be in the European Union regulation that's going to allow insects to be used as food. So, with that, I'm going to do a little ASMR, and I'm going to give these crickets a try, buddy. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
They're really spicy. This makes for great television.
Tastes like fish food.
Oh my god, that's a really great description. It does taste a lot like fish food, like I'm eating little freeze-dried shrimpies.
Mm.
So they're very dry. I'm assuming these have been freeze-dried or just straight up, dehydrated, but all in all, they're not bad. And it kind of reminds me of eating like a sunflower seed or something like that, but oh man, they're very spicy. Thanks, babe. Oh shit, allergy warning. If you're allergic to shellfish, you may also be allergic to insects. Well, I can have shellfish, but yeah, the ingredients are roasted crickets, ground jalapenos, garlic, and salt. Very, very interesting. And like you just said, I'm going to spend the rest of the episode digging out cricket legs from my teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, funnily enough, that was not in my script. I just looked over and realized I still had this test tube of crickets.
The things
Well,
we
buddy,
do for our listeners.
Speaking of insects and tying it into our main topic of superstitions, have you ever been to a restaurant where they've got like a baggie, like a Ziploc, full of like pennies and water hanging up outside, like on a patio or on an awning before?
No.
Well, apparently there's a pest control trick that scientists are currently testing out right now that some Americans believe has been a long used superstition to repel flies. It involves a handful of pennies, water, plastic bags, and sometimes a string. Residents along Residents along the southern U.S. have passed down the tip and say that filling sealable plastic bags with water and pennies will help keep flies away when you hang them near a window or a door or a seating area, such as outside on the patio of a restaurant. Etymology says, nope, skip that. The root cause and solution of fly problems is sanitation. Most flies feed on dead or decaying organic matter, like leftover fish or nachos or whatever. So the approach of using pennies in a bag to get rid of flies may or may not be a real way to get rid of them, says etymologists. But a recent article published in the food magazine Taste of Home reported that southern residents and restaurant owners swear by the penny and water-filled bag trick as a method of naturally repelling flies. Some people have theorized the penny and water plastic bag trick could potentially work by messing with a fly's vision, according to a speculative article released by the Tennessee Farm Bureau, which is a non-governmental nonprofit. The best explanation is a simple light refraction that's going through the bag of water that confuses a horsefly or a housefly. A housefly has large complex eyes that are made up of thousands of simple eyeballs that don't move or focus. So a fly bases its movement on light, and the refraction of light coming through the water of a plastic bag from all different directions could confuse a fly, causing it to move on to places that are easier on the eyes. Dedicated penny and water theorists have also suggested the hack might fool a fly into believing the filled bags are other insects' eyes or surface water, which might tell a fly it's unwise to land anywhere near. But yeah, it's funny. A long time ago, Shayla just texted me. We went to La Hacienda Ranch in Fort Worth, and they had those bags hanging all over their patios.
Hmm.
Yeah, I didn't know if you heard about that or not. But yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. In the news, apparently scientists are checking that out to see if it might be a more humane way to get rid of them versus sticky paper and fly traps. Well, I'm going to rinse some of these crickets out of my mouth. See, this is a perk of watching live streams. The people that listen on audio don't get to see this.
Right. I mean, but then the perk of listening to the audio is you don't have to watch a video with no audio for the first 15 minutes. So.
Oh, buddy, that is painfully true, but
Growing pains, folks. Growing pains.
Mm-hmm. I told my brother we're going to give him the executive producer title for this episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, let's get to the nitty gritty, shall we? Last time we met, we shared a ton of your guys' own personal superstitions, and we may revisit a few of those on tonight's episode, because tonight we're going to take a deeper dive into some of the more common superstitions and talk about the meaning and reasoning behind a lot of them. So buckle up, y'all, because we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff and unpacking a ton on this episode. We're going to be talking about religion, good fortune. I put McDonald's on that list. I don't know how, but who knows. The Pope,
Wow.
King Henry VIII, and the fate of your very own soul. And also that son of a bitch Judas, who just has to put his dirty face in every single one of these, it feels like. So the human mind continuously and unconsciously searches for useful patterns. I know I look for patterns all the time. In fact, when I watched Skinamarink the other day in the movie theater, it wasn't the really slow-moving movie that ruined itself for me, but instead the lo-fi filter they put on the screen repeating itself every 2 to 3 minutes ruined it for me because I saw what, Preston? A pattern. So other patterns, for example, are how we survive by recognizing feeding patterns, and we put ourselves in the right places at the right times for different meals. We also avoid injury or death when crossing busy streets by looking for patterns of traffic. Getting fed and avoiding being squished in traffic both involve learning real cause and effect patterns. And of course, you can see this in like crows as well. A lot of studies show that crows would swoop down and get walnuts that weren't quite ripe enough to crack. They'd go back up, rest on traffic lights, and when the light turned green, they would drop the walnuts to let cars run them over. Then when the light turned red, they'd learn they could swoop down and grab the nut meat off the street before cars would then come back through when the light turns back to green. So we aren't the only ones who study patterns, but we are the only ones that follow superstitions. And sometimes our brains interfere causing cause and effect patterns that aren't real. So suppose that a friend gives you a lucky penny, Preston, or in my case, a lucky St. Sebastian pendant. Well, being skeptical as I am, I would put it on my shoe, run tough, mutter, and at the very end, I'd look down at my shoe and say, holy crap, I got this lucky pendant. I didn't get severely maimed while doing this thing. Lo and behold, I might just start believing that I have a lucky pendant, and therefore a personal superstition is born. Now, to further that idea, I would say that probably 95% of the OCR mud runs I've done, I've had that pendant either on my shoe or on my drawstring of my shorts or in a pocket. And again, maybe I'll knock on a little wood. We'll get to that later. But I have not been severely injured, and in fact saved a few people from getting severely injured. And perhaps that could be because of my lucky St. Sebastian pendant. But, me telling a few friends that I have a good luck pendant and countless other superstitions can be born by just talking about things in socialization. Learning about them from parents and other trusted authorities or friends while we're still young opens up a world to, just this giant landscape of magical possibilities. And then, of course, other superstitions circulate indefinitely among families and friends, reinforced by word of mouth. And that's how we also get, old wives' tales, which kind of hold very close to superstitions. But it seems as though the more people that support a superstition, the more believable it can soon become, and the longer it will persist. And if a superstition happens to make us more cautious around mirrors, there's no harm in that, right? I mean, I like to be careful around mirrors because those fuckers are expensive and I don't like to get cut by glass. But a
Yeah.
tiny part of me also says, I don't really want 7 years of bad luck. So while superstitions can be fun and interesting to talk about, there's also a lot of weird stories that are behind them. So first of all, let's just jump and talk about some black cats, shall we? So most of us have heard the old superstition that if you're not supposed that you're not supposed to hang on, cricket in the throat. I wouldn't suggest eating crickets by the handful like I did. I might suggest though sprinkle them on a salad, perhaps. So most of us have heard the old superstition that you're not supposed to let a black cat cross your path, and if you did, you're surely gonna have a little bit of bad luck. But as it turns out, Preston, black cats haven't always had such a bad rap. My brother and I, we grew up with a black cat, and, she crossed my path 100 times, and I never seemed to have too much bad luck. And she even lived to the ripe old age of 19 years old.
I've
See,
never
back
owned a
around
black cat.
You've never have?
No, we've always had a gray cat. Gray's the color of luck. So whenever I go to
Oh,
get
no
a kitty
shit.
cat, my stipulation is it has to be gray or gray in color. I refuse to get any other color of cat if it is not
Mm-hmm.
that steel gray or like, steel gray and white or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it always has to be named Mr.
Interesting.
Kitty or Kitty. Those are the only two names that it can be. So,
Okay. Is that your
but
own superstition?
yeah, I don't deviate. So,
Huh. What about a black and white cat? If it runs by you real quick, it'll look gray.
I mean, I'm probably not gonna give two
You can
shits
say
if it
no.
runs by me, but I ain't gonna own it. Is what I'm saying. So if it's a cat in my
Okay.
house, it's gray and it's Kitty or Mister Kitty. Those are the only two choices.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, cats haven't always had such a bad rap, and in fact, back in 3000 BCE, during the time of Egyptian rule, of course, cats as a whole were worshipped as feline deities. Thus, they were notoriously honored and worshipped almost to the same degree as pharaohs. And to such a degree that if you were to ever kill one, it would be considered to be a capital crime. And then if you fast forward, cats were also important in Greek mythology, especially for the Greek deity known as Hecate, the goddess of mythology, the goddess of magic, sorcery, the moon, and witchcraft. She herself was described as having a black cat as both a pet and her familiar. So let's talk about Hecate a little bit here. The goddess had an unusual ritual performed in her honor back in the Greek religion. This included offerings of food that were oftentimes given at crossroads, road junctions, and any other sort of boundary or threshold. These were known as the Supper of Hecate. They took the form of small cakes, eggs, and cheese and bread, and also, strangely enough, dog meat. All which were left with lit miniature torches, or alternatively, dishes of red mullet could be left as well. Hecate was also offered the sacrifice of dogs in addition to these food offerings, especially, unfortunately, sacrifices of puppies. The dog connection may be the fact that dogs were known to eat the dead if left unburied, and they also howl at the moon, so of course, perhaps it's just the fact that Hecate's loved cats and hated dogs that pissed people off and started the whole terrible twist of the fate of a black cat. No, that's not true, actually. It's just because of our dear friends, the Catholics, the Christians, and other organized religion that really screwed cats instead of the pooch and put the old 86 on our feline friends. See, presto, back in the 13th and 14th century, with the rise of witchcraft in Europe, the association between black cats and black goats and other black animals, for that matter, went hand in hand with the devil. And the correlation was so prevalent that an official church document called the Vox in Rama was issued by Pope Gregory IX on June 13th of 1233. In the Vox in Rama, black cats were declared a direct incarnation of Satan, and the formal written Catholic decree marked the beginning of the Inquisition and church-sanctioned heretic and or witch hunts. Initially, it was designed to squash the growing cult of Luciferians in Germany, but quickly, of course, like religion, it spread across Europe. Which is fucking wild, because back in, the way back, the Christian church in Europe actually coexisted peacefully with witches, and the two lived in harmony for just a little while. But as the church gained power and organized religion spread faster and farther across European cities, the church began to see witches and witchcraft as their direct competition. And so in the quest to gain the hearts and the minds of the masses, the church began persecuting, torturing, and killing witches in a high number. See, the problem was witches honored the natural world, having deep respect for plants and other animals, but because witches weren't Christians, their affection between humans and animals began to be seen as diabolical and devilish in nature, and suddenly any old lady with a cat would suddenly be suspected as being a witch. But it wasn't just the bond that cats held with their human counterparts that scared early Christians. They also saw felines as literal threats, because they thought that cats were just like the wanton women accused of being witches, and they tended to exhibit a healthy disrespect of authority. They didn't fawn and run around like happy little dopes like dogs and puppies did, but instead cats exhibited a devil-may-care attitude, and so the church, neither independent women or independent animals were to be tolerated. And this shit went on well into the 16th century, where mass hysteria over witchcraft was at its peak, and the superstition associated with black cats and so-called witches, believing them to be either a witch's demonic familiar or the devil himself, eventually spread all the way to America during the Salem witch trials. So basically, people started slaughtering any and every black cat they came across or laid their eyes on, thus making it kind of ironic that it sounds to me like if a person crossed a black cat's path, then they were pretty much doomed. But here's another fun fact for you. When the bubonic plague arrived back in Europe in October 1347, when the 12 ships from the Black Sea docked at the Sicilian port of Messina, people gathered on the docks and were met with a horrifying surprise. Most sailors on board the ship were already dead, and those still alive were gravely ill and covered in black boils that oozed black blood and pus, and Sicilian authorities hastily ordered the fleet of death ships out the harbor, but unfortunately we all know that was too late, and over the next 5 years, Black Death would kill more than 20 million people in Europe. That's almost 1/3 of the continent's population. Well, of course, people already believed that black cats were also causing the Black Death, and sadly attempted to further exterminate them as well. That's right, folks, people thought that black cats might have been the result and the causation of the Black Plague. Anyway, I'm out of breath, so presto, speaking of the devil, what do you have up next for us?
Well, first of all, I was scrolling a little bit further ahead in the notes just to see the order in which you put things, and I realized you added some fucking shit on top of my notes that I originally wasn't going to speak about. I'm like, this motherfucker gave me more speaking parts than what I originally intended. God damn it.
I mean, just a couple little interjections.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay. So, speaking of the old Black Deatharoo, I talked about last episode the whole idea of you sneeze, and I'm like, God bless. And then if you don't say God bless, yeah, like I'm an asshole, and I'm like, it's stupid. So then I was like, well, let me go look up the actual history of this fucking dumb superstition. So the most popular theory of why we say God bless after people sneezing was it originated in Rome during the bubonic plague, and sneezing was one of the plague's main symptoms, and it is believed that Pope Gregory the First suggested a tiny prayer in the form of saying God bless you after a sneeze which would protect the person from death.
So I picture them saying, "God bless you," and then just slaughtering a cat right afterwards.
Yeah. Another more superstitious theory is that it stems from the ancient belief that a sneeze might accidentally expel the spirit from the body unless God blesses you and prevents it. Other cultures thought that sneezing forced evil spirits out of the body, leaving others exposed to wandering spirits and blessing them. Like, there's people fucking, oh God, Jerry's going to get in you now. Somebody say God bless, hurry up.
Yeah. So the common cold also gave you bad juju.
Yeah. And so anyways, the blessing was to protect both the sneezers and those around him. And then there's the rumor that our hearts stop when we sneeze. And saying bless you is a way of welcoming the sneezer back from the dead.
Oh, kind of like that movie Flatliners.
Yeah, and if you accidentally sneeze 10 times in a row, the nerve endings firing off in your body is the same sensation as an orgasm. So.
Huh. So if you go 10 times in a row rapid fire, you're just going to end up with, pants full of sock gravy.
Yeah, you're going to be, have snot gravy and coming out one end and sock gravy coming out the other.
Ooh, man.
Yeah.
It's got to be a name for that. Anyway, there's several different theories here on souls, and it seems to be a lot of concern about the soul wrapped up in all these superstitions. And just like the last episode where we touched on not yawning in a cemetery or even while you're driving by one, another common superstition across the Western world involves holding your breath when you pass by a cemetery. And if you don't, you might risk breathing in the soul of someone who has died. So a lot of conflicting origin stories occur with this idea, but some of them relate clear back to God breathing life into Adam from the Bible, and thus a fear that, if you yawn, you might lose your soul or the breath of God. But throughout human history, breath has long been associated with life and spirits, and to this day, people still hold their breath when passing by cemeteries out of the fear they'll take on the soul of somebody who recently died, thus kicking your own soul to the curb. So just to be safe, when you're passing by a cemetery and you forget to hold your breath, maybe you ought to just knock on a little wood for some good luck.
And also, real quick, let me interject. I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing, that if you pass by a cemetery you don't hold your breath, like you might pick up some wandering spirits, because in the Jewish faith we talked about in past episodes of the Dybbuk, and so the Dybbuk box, and the in earlier beliefs the Dybbuk meant one who clings, and so after you passed away, it was believed that you didn't get to go to heaven right away, because if you had habits and some bad habits, like Shawn likes to drink a lot of whiskey, and maybe I smoke too much, and so then I pass away, and before I get to go to the pearly gates, I got to be a wandering spirit, and I got to cling to somebody who's suffering from a nicotine addiction and help them overcome that addiction. And then once I do so, then I've earned the grace of God to pass through the pearly gates. And so maybe we're just all fucking ourselves by, trying to, these superstitions of holding our breath in, because maybe right now there's a Jerry or a Steve out there that's like used to smoke 30 packs a day, and God's like, I don't want this fucker up here. He's supposed to help
everywhere.
Me. Yeah, Pat, help me get over my own nicotine addiction. And then every time I sneeze, somebody's like, God bless. And Jerry's like, God damn it, that was my one opportunity. That's the perfect candidate right there. I was going to help him. I was. So I'm just saying, let's start a new movement. Hashtag every time somebody sneezes, go fuck yourself.
I like it.
Yeah. Hey, go fuck yourself. All right, there you go. I just saved you, buddy. I just saved you.
Yeah.
Doing the Lord's work. It's hard, but I'm doing it.
Well, you completely disabled my segue to the next topic. So, where do you go from there, folks? Let's talk about knocking on wood.
Yeah, those are your two choices: knock on wood or say go fuck yourself. So, what do you want to
Right.
do?
Oh man, in many cultures, it's common superstition for people to knock on their Jesus. In many cultures, it's common superstition for people to knock their knuckles on a piece of wood to bring themselves good fortune or ward off bad luck. Yet while the phrase knock on wood or touch wood in Britain has been a part of the vernacular since at least the 19th century, there seems to be a little agreement on how it originated. One common explanation traces back the phenomenon to ancient pagan cultures, such as the Celts or the Celts, who believed in the spirits of gods and other deities resided in trees. You got the Fey folk and the wood sprites and wood nymphs and even the spirit of the green man and Pan. So what's interesting, sorry, another cricket. What's interesting here is the green man has been depicted with variants almost everywhere, not just in the Irish folklore and the Scottish folklore, but clear through Europe, the Middle East, and even in Africa, all the way to Eastern Asia and Oceania. But surprisingly enough, there's not too many natural depictions found in the Americas. But anyway, it was believed that knocking on tree trunks may have served to rouse the spirits of these woodland sprites to call them for their protection. But it could have also been a way of showing gratitude for a stroke of good luck. Like, you found a couple pennies on the ground, or you found a few shillings, or the girl that you were, eyeballing for a long time finally took notice of you. So to say thanks to the old green man or Pan, you'd walk by and knock on a tree trunk or something just to say, hey, thanks, guys. Just to let them know you're acknowledging them. But just as a lot of Japanese yokai are, Pan and many of the other wood sprites can also be seen to turn on humans and be seen as trickster spirits as well. So another theory is that people knocked on wood to chase away evil spirits or prevent them from listening in when they boasted about their luck, thereby preventing a reversal of fortune. Christians, meanwhile, have often linked the practice of wood knocking to the wood of the cross from Christ's crucifixion. But anyway, it's not just knocking on wood that'll bring you some good fortune, presto. Why don't you hit us with another well-known lucky memento?
I mean, you could rub your knuckles on some wood and get knuckle babies. That might bring you good luck. So, I don't know. I'm throwing that out there.
I was gonna make a kickstand joke earlier, but I thought no, if anyone's gonna make it, Preston will pick it up. So good
Yeah,
job, buddy boy.
that's what I'm here for. And so this next one, like I realized that if I had to rank superstitions on which one I loathe the most, so obviously sneezing is like number one. This next one would be number two for me, only because when I was a kid, it didn't bother me all that much. So we'd go out somewhere and we'd be like walking in the Walmart parking lot. He'd be like, "Hold on, son, I got to pick up a penny. Brings you good luck." I'm like, "Okay, Dad." And then as became an adult and Dad became like an older senile man, and he moved like a snail, he'd be like, "Hold on, Shawn, I gotta pick up the penny." And then we spend an extra 10 minutes in the parking lot while he's fiddle fucking around trying to pick this penny off the pavement. And then if I try to do it for him, he's like, "It's my good luck. Don't touch that penny. I'm gonna get it." And so I'm just like, you know what? Whoever fucking came up with this, like, rotten hell, because I've wasted a lot of time watching people pick up pennies, and I got shit to do. Okay.
Yeah,
So
one of my favorite pranks is when somebody super glues a penny to like the floor of like a Walmart or a Dillon. So I think that's just great.
yeah. Some people believe it's only good luck to pick up a penny when it's showing heads up. Unless you're Big John Wiener, then you'll just pick up a random penny no matter what. And
Fuck you, it's my penny.
yeah, a penny with the tail side up should be turned over for another person to find. So instead of being a greedy bastard and picking it up, you should flip it over to heads and be like, "I'm passing on that good fortune."
Yeah,
You
exactly. Pay it forward, literally.
pay for it, 1 cent at a time. You may hear people repeat the common rhyme, "Find a penny, pick it up. All day long, you'll have good luck." So what do you think, listeners? Do you believe in either of these superstitions? Do you know anyone who does other than me? Have you ever had a friend or family member tell you not to pick up a penny if its tail is showing? But just how in the fuck did these beliefs get started? Well, long ago, many ancient people believed that metals were the gift of the gods. Copper, gold, iron. They weren't fucking picky. If it was metal, it was lucky. This included the copper. Yeah, this included the copper that was used to make pennies. They thought that these metals were given to them by the gods for their protection. So, if you found metal, you should definitely pick it up, since it would protect you and bring you good fortune. This is probably where the belief of finding a penny is lucky came from. Of course, pennies also have value. So, people probably also believed that finding a penny was lucky because it increased your wealth 1 fucking cent at a time.
Mm-hmm. It's the long game.
It's the long game, baby. The long stroke, not the short stroke.
Yep. Yeah, Shayla's mom does that with dimes. She'll find dimes all the time, and that's kind of some good luck. But
shit, she's moving the ball forward 9 more cents. So
yeah, dude, she doesn't mess around. She plays for keeps.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember growing up and hearing the same thing. Oh, it's on heads, so you can pick it up, or oh no, it's tails up, so just walk past it, leave it alone. But yeah, I never heard about flipping it over for somebody else until we started looking into this episode. So that's kind of cool. I think I'm gonna leave jalapeno garlic crickets for people to find, and that'll give them some real good luck. Well, from pennies we go to mirrors, also made by the metal of the gods. Everyone has probably heard, for example, that breaking a mirror will bring 7 years of bad luck. And this superstition dates all the way back to the Romans. And it was the Roman artisans who actually learned that manufacturing mirrors from polishing metal surfaces could be used by the gods to observe their souls through these devices. But then around the 3rd century, mirrors were then being made from glass, which meant breaking them became a lot more commonplace. You see, you make a metal mirror and you polish it up real good and you drop it, it just goes clang, or, like a gong and scares the shit out of Sisyphus or somebody like that. But if you broke a glass mirror because they're so fragile, well, it's a big mess. So if you broke a mirror or damaged it in any other way, it was considered to be a sign of disrespect to the gods. And if you pissed them off by breaking their little peeping Tom portals, then they'd rain down bad luck on your ass for about 7 years. But why 7 years, you ask? Well, it's because the Romans believed that life renewed itself every 7 years, and your soul would kind of refresh itself after the 7th year. So if you made Neptune or Minerva mad by breaking your mirror, you gotta endure 7 real shitty years. But the good news is, there's a number of folk remedies for relieving the 7 years of bad luck. You see, early American slaves believed that the bad luck could be washed away by immersing the pieces of a broken mirror into south-flowing water for 7 hours. Another tale says that 7 years of bad luck may be kept from taking effect by grinding the shards in the mirror into a fine powder so that no particle could any longer reflect images at all. Another one says that putting the broken pieces of it into a bag and then burying it would accomplish the same thing. But it's also worth mentioning that maybe mirrors need their own episode, because you've also got scrying and ritual magic and remote viewing. And forget about 7 years of bad luck, buddy. If you look into a mirror and say the name of Bloody Mary or fucking Candyman, you might not even make it long enough to have your 7 years of shit misfortune. Yeah. So I'm going to put a pin in that and probably come back to mirrors at some point. But anyway, speaking of famous horror movie monsters like Candyman, let's move on to the fear of Friday the 13th and the number 13 in general. See, the fear of Friday the 13th, also known as Fricatrisk Aid Echophobia, is one that plagued our society for centuries. The diagnosis brings together the word Frigg, a Norse goddess and Friday's namesake, and Trisk Ada Echophobia, which is a fear of the number 13 in general. So, tie it together. What do you get? Every year, the world loses about 700 to 800 million dollars on Friday the 13th because people won't conduct business as usual. Many people will refuse to fly on the day, but on the contrary, Egyptians considered the afterlife, the 13th phase of life, to be very, very lucky. But anyway, almost 80% of high-rise buildings skip the 13th floor.
No, no,
Many
no.
airports exclude gate.
No, no, no. They don't skip the
No.
13th floor. Every single, like, when I was down in San Antonio for the honeymoon and we were, like,
Hmm.
going to all these, like, haunted hotels and, like, staying in them,
Hmm.
they just renamed the 13th floor the 14th floor. There were still 13 floors, but somehow the friggin' nigonometry that they did in their math, they just like make it
Hmm.
14. It's 13, but it's 14. If we call it 14, then it's not technically 13, and you'll be fine. And then go ahead and put some
Yeah.
gargoyles around the top of the 14th floor, and if they're on the outside of the building, we've got like two canceling forces to get rid of that juju and magic. But there's
There you
technically
go.
still 13 floors. If you count them, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, they just renamed it on the elevator. So, like,
Right.
boop, trick the mind.
Yep. I've also heard of buildings having a legitimate 13th floor and they just never finish it. It's there. It's usually got beams and rafters and everything else. But, like, again, like you said, your elevator will go 12 and then to 14. It'll go up just a little longer than normal because it kind of jets right past the 13th floor. But technically, a lot of buildings have a legitimate 13th floor. They just don't name it and don't do anything with it. Anyway, I already talked about that. On top of that, almost 80% of high rise buildings, blah, 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 blah. Many airports also exclude gate number 13, and hospitals regularly try to avoid the 13th room. And of course, who could forget my personal favorite scary movie monster, Jason Voorhees, who has no doubt influenced our opinion of Fridays and the number 13th in a majorly negative way. And here's a fun fact for everybody, especially my favorite fellow horror movie fans. The next Friday the 13th of 2013 is going to be in October, baby. That means the perfect time for a Jason Voorhees movie marathon.
Hey, look, fuck that hockey mask wearing pussy, okay? Because he's not the original bad boy of Friday the 13th. Right? Don't hedge all your bets on Mr. Jason. Fuck that guy.
Right. I'm glad you said that part that I put in that you didn't know that I wrote for you.
Hey,
First
Jason
and
Voorhees,
foremost,
if you're not first, you're last, bitch.
very true, very true. So yeah, the original bad boy of Friday the 13th, first and foremost. The Last Supper's 13th guest and last apostle was none other than Judas himself, who also portrayed Jesus, according to the Bible. Then his crucifixion happened on a Friday. Hang on, a big plane's flying by. Then, of course, Jesus' crucifixion occurred on a Friday, so some scholars believe that and some scholars believe that Eve tempted Adam on a Friday with the apple from the tree of knowledge, as well as Cain killing his brother on a Friday as well. So, again, the Bible rears its head. But it's actually perhaps the beginning of the number 13's association with bad luck that could be traced back to Norse mythology. When Loki, the god of mischief, gate crashed the banquet in Valhalla, bringing the number of gods in attendance to 13 as well. Deceived by Loki, the blind god Hodor was tricked into shooting his brother Balder, the god of light and joy and goodness, with a mistletoe-tipped arrow, killing him instantly. So it seems as though Jason Voorhees ain't the king of the 13th Friday, but instead it's a toss-up between fucking Judas and Loki. And then again, King Philip IV of France certainly didn't help anything by ordering the persecution of the Knights of Templar on a Friday, October 13th, back in 1307. And in the following years, several thousands faced torture and execution as well. Preston, you probably know a little bit about that, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, the Knights Templar were really like the first Swiss bank. They had devised a banking system to where they would hold on to your goods, or if you were traveling through Jerusalem, they had a trade currency in place to where you could exchange, francs for gold dollars and yens for gold dollars. Wherever you were from, whatever the currency was, they had an exchange rate going on, and then they would protect you through your holy pilgrimage. And the Pope didn't like that. The Pope wanted the power, and old King Philly liked to get his dick wet, and he also liked to drink. And he got his dick wet a little too much and drank a little too much, and basically bankrupt France like 10 times. And every single time he'd go up to the old Knights Templar, my brothers, what's up? It's King Philly. I need a loan.
Who wants his dick?
Oh. And yeah, he's like, my dick is dry. It needs to be wet. Give me some money. And they're like, okay, Philip. And they give him the money, and then, he'd be like, yo, guess what? My dick is dry again. I need more money. I'm thirsty. And they give him more money. And then after a while, they were just like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on me again. Fool me the 10th time, go fuck yourself. And then the Pope was like, hey, what'd they tell you? And he was like, they told me to go fuck myself. And he's like, they told me to go fuck myself. Ain't nobody telling the Pope to go fuck himself. So he's like, they're devil worshippers. They're probably doing, men's sex shit and cutting off babies' heads and all this. Like, get them. And so they rounded them all up Friday the 13th. And one of the tortures to get them to admit that they were devil worshippers was they would lay them on a wooden bed and strap them down, and the torture guy would take pig fat and smear it all over their feet, just coat the whole entire foot up to the ankle, just in 100% gooey pig fat, and then they take a candle and they just slowly move it forward and keep getting it closer and closer till it was right up on them piggly wigglies. And the fat would heat up and slow roast the skin straight to the bone and fall off like Kansas City barbecue. Yeah, fall off like Kansas City barbecue. And they were just like, at that point, like, yes, hail Satan. What? Just fucking slice my throat already. I want to die. What do I need to say? And so they're like, all right, you heard it from those 3 guys right there. Hail Satan. Fucking go kill the rest of them. And then, boom, that's how it happened. They got him.
And meanwhile, the Pope's just up there in his throne singing, Templars roasting on an open fire.
And then, for the 11th time, King Philip got his dick wet. And that's all, boom. That's all she wrote. Yeah.
If nothing else, he was consistent.
There you go.
Well, King Philip IV of France certainly didn't help by ordering the persecution, blah, 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 blah. Oops, sorry, I must have scrolled down. Okay, and of course, as mentioned before, guys, who could forget old Pope Gregory IX, who introduced the damn Vox in Rama that almost screwed black cats into oblivion, again, introduced on June the 13th, 1233. But that was a Tuesday. But if those tales don't if those tales don't convince you, maybe math can step in and change those vibes. See, if 13 is Jesus, crickets. If 13 is the unlucky number, then perhaps 12 might be the luckiest number of all. 12 appears a lot in our culture in good ways. There's 12 months in a year, 12 hours on a clock, 12 signs of the zodiac, and 12 apostles of Jesus. Except for Judas. Fuck that guy. While Western cultures have historically associated the number 12 with completeness, 12 days of Christmas, and again the zodiac, the 12 labors of Hercules, the 12 gods of Olympus, except for Loki. Fuck that guy too. And 12 tribes of Israel. The number 12 is also said to be a perfect number because the sum of all it's divisible by can be added up to 12 as well. I don't think that's right, though, because if you take 1 plus 2, that's 3, plus 3, that's 6, plus 4, that's 10, plus 6 is 16. So I'm just dumb and don't understand it, or maybe they're wrong. It makes its successor 13 into the unlucky number. But if we dig a little deeper, though, we can find evidence that both Fridays and the number 13th have long been regarded as harbingers of good fortune, not just bad fortune, because in pagan times, for instance, Friday was believed to have a unique association with divine femininity. Femininity. And the number 13, meanwhile, has long been regarded as a portentous number by pre-Christian and goddess-worshipping cultures for its link to the number of lunar and menstrual cycles that occur in a calendar year. Fertility was prized in pagan times, and artwork could be often drawn in connections to menstruation, fertility, and the phases of the moon, all wrapped around the number 13.
Feminists,
And speaking of divine...
if you're listening, I'm just going to throw, I don't know, maybe some advice out there. Look, you guys have been trying to change shit for a long time, and burning bras and all that ain't working. And you know why? Because you're not using the power of lucky number 13 like your ancient sisters did. So I don't know. Maybe next time you're going to have like a protest and you're going to burn some bras and, you know, do your feminist shit. Do it on Friday the 13th or you know, that's actually probably your luckiest day because it's a Friday and it has number 13 in it. And we need to cancel out all the bad shit with Friday the 13th in our culture. So do us a solid. Do your shit then. Just saying.
Huh. I'm not sure if that's great advice or chauvinism at its finest.
I'm pretty sure it's solid advice. I'm just saying, like, based off history and superstition, dude, go back to your roots, okay? They got shit done back then. Why? Because they were following the golden rule of Friday the 13th, and you're not doing that shit now. So, just saying.
Huh. I'll follow that up by saying,
yeah.
And speaking of divine femininity, I'm glad you brought that little tangent up there, buddy, because the tide may also start turning because of one Taylor Swift, who considers 13 her lucky number and early on in her career oftentimes performed with the number written on her hand. Taylor Swift, setting good examples far and wide, says, "I was born on the 13th. I turned 13 on Friday the 13th. My first album went gold in 13 weeks. My first number one song had a 13-second intro." She told MTV back in 2009, "Every time I've won an award, I've been seated on either the 13th seat, the 13th row, the 13th section, or row M, of course, which is what, Preston? The 13th letter. So basically, wherever a 13 comes up in my life, it's a good thing. So let's all summon the power of Taylor Swift." T. Swizzle. I don't have a tangent. I mean, I don't have a segue. Preston, what do you got next?
Yeah, so you gave me spilling salt, and then I was looking up, like, well, you know, why the fuck do we throw salt behind our back when we spill it? And then I got, like, a whole fucking, like, 15 different food articles on different shit. And I was like, oh, my God, I didn't know half of this crap. So, rice. You throw it for prosperity and fertility. So that's why at weddings, it's not uncommon for, as the bride and groom are walking out, that people chuck rice at them. Originating in Italy, this is a superstition that most people know. It was born in the time when marriage was made to transferring land and power. Throwing rice at newlyweds was thought to be offering wealth and fertility. But why rice? Well, because it was cheaper and less painful than throwing figs. Cheap bat. Hey, we want to bless you with, you know, prosperity and wealth, so we're going to find the cheapest fucking thing we have to throw at you. Good luck.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we throw confetti because we're even cheaper, and it's I don't, but it's more difficult to clean up. So just, you know what? Just get something to shoo birds away, and then throw the rice. Okay, confetti's worse for the environment. You know.
Well, and to that, you know, you're not supposed to throw rice anymore because if birds eat, you know, a tummy full of rice and get a big old gulp of water, their stomachs can explode. So now we're supposed to throw bird seed.
Huh.
Yeah. The more
Pouring,
you know.
yeah, pouring 2 cups of tea from the same pot. Woo, that's the worst fucking luck there ever was.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I do that all the time. Who the fuck wants to drink just 1 cup of tea? No, Daddy goes gets his big teapot that's got the little tea leaf thing at the very bottom, and I can make like a whole pot of tea, and I can just pour multiple cups. But anyways, if you pour 2 cups of tea from the same pot, it will bring you bad luck. Now, and nowadays it's made with tea bags, so most people don't even know about that. But if you know anybody in your life that drinks a lot of tea, don't let them do it. Go tea bags. It's, help a guy out or a sister out. Don't let them do anything. Now,
Uh-huh.
spilling salt, bad luck.
Yep.
Throwing it, good luck. How did we come across this? Well, Judas Iscariot, you son of a bitch. It's all your fault. Again.
Fucking Judas, man.
I know. So if you spill salt, prepare to be prepared to be cast into eternal damnation or something like that. Fortunately, you can reverse this whatever. You can reverse this.
Dastardly?
Bad turn of a fortune by simply throwing salt over your shoulder, your left shoulder. Because right is dexterous, left is sinful, because this is the bad hand. So don't.
And that's also because in a lot of belief systems, you have the good devil and the bad devil, the good side, the bad side.
Yeah.
And it's believed that the devil oftentimes sits on the left shoulder, including some Middle Eastern beliefs of the same principle. You have I forgot what they're called. Shit. But anyway, basically you have like a good version, and then you have a jinn sitting on the left shoulder. So the idea is you take the salt and you just pelt, the old devil bastard right in the face sitting on your shoulder. Yeah. And of course, salt is said to ward off evil spirits. So you just pelt that little bastard like, tiny shotgun shells with salt just bumped my mic, all day long.
And, if you read in the Bible doesn't go into details of this, but apparently, when people back in the 1500s, when they didn't have anything better to do with their life, and they would just stare at, Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, in the scene, Judas Iscariot is seen right over a spilt container of salt, and which honestly, that's not the worst thing that he probably did, but because that was depicted in that scene. It became considered bad luck, and they're like, well, if that bastard did it, he's already done all these other crimes, like, ooh, it's bad, it's bad. And also, salt used to be pretty expensive, and not everybody, not you and I, let's say that we were living back in the day, we weren't rich enough to be able to cook with salt and have salt. We'd be, the poor sea urchins of the world, and salt wouldn't be in our repertoire. And so it was considered unfortunate misfortune if you spilt it, because it was such a commodity that it would bring bad luck upon you. And also, like you said, assuming that the devil sits on your left side of your shoulder, you'd hit him in the face with the salt, and it's in my eyes, and then he'd go away. So, and then, Shawn, if I need to know this, but if a man and a woman pour tea together, you're gonna get knocked up within a year. So, don't want a child with the man or a woman you're drinking tea with, then don't drink tea together. That's as simple as that. So,
what's that?
Yeah. Break an egg with 2 yolks means twins or death. So,
either or.
Yeah.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah. That superstition originates with Rome, and in the Norse culture as well. They have a slightly different take. They believe that cracking an egg with a double yolk just doesn't mean bad luck. It just means that you're going to die, because it's doesn't happen all the time. So
gotcha.
Bubbles on your coffee could mean money coming your way. So if you make a cup of coffee that's all bubbly,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
and the bubbles on top float towards you, you're about to come into money, and that's yeah, it's like winning the lotto.
Huh, damn, nice.
Yeah,
Well, that little trip down Superstition Road kind of leads us to the end here, where we bring up the idea that superstitions are fun and they're very interesting, but like I said earlier, they really have to do with patterns, recognizing cause and effect, causation and all that kind of stuff. So I myself, like I said before, am known to put my Saint Sebastian pendant in my pocket. Now that I actually broke the little eyelet off of it, but that's been something I've taken with me a lot of times. Even outside of like doing OCR races, I've traveled with it. I normally put it on my backpack or my carry-on. And when we went and did the Museum of Shadows, of course, along with the cross my parents gave me when I was in eighth grade, I put both those things on a chain and wore it around my neck. And thank God and gods I did, because the things that happened in that room were very bizarre, and I'm pretty happy I had some kind of, religious trinket or two on. But, that's easy to say, ooh, I like to find pennies and pick them up. But when you talk about patterns and causation and stuff like that, and like a couple people that we talked to, or I'm sorry, a couple people that commented on our last episode, superstitions also go hand in hand with OCD. And while you and I are neither one qualified to talk about mental health, it still needs to be brought up. Superstition is a natural and common phenomenon. Considering athletes who don't change their underwear on a winning streak, gamblers who blow on dice sets at a good crap table, sports fans who sit in a lucky chair to watch the entire game, and countless others among us who avoid the 13th floor, knocking on woods, crossing our fingers, and performing any other number of rituals that have no casual effect on the outcome they hope for. Usually, a small dose of superstition has no super significant bearing on a person's life, but obsessive compulsive disorder, also known as OCD, but in obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, superstition can be a driver of intolerable fear and an overwhelming sense of responsibility to prevent misfortune, i.e., superstition and OCD kind of go hand in hand, and one of them can fuel the other like a fire. So at the heart of superstitious behavior, it's superstitious thinking, the perception of an action or ritual like skipping over cracks in pavement that can actually prevent bad things from happening to oneself or loved ones. Mental health professionals refer to this form of OCD thinking as magical thinking because it involves supernatural associations with cause and effect. For instance, an individual might have the intrusive thought, if I use the new coffee maker, my wife will get into a car accident. To alleviate the fear that this might bring, they just avoid using the coffee maker. Their wife returns home safe, and they think, okay, thank God I don't use the coffee maker. My wife doesn't get hurt. And it just kind of spirals way out of control. All of this being driven by the perception that such rituals could prevent freak accidents. So with OCD, again, it's kind of a real slippery slope. And unfortunately, there's just not a lot of things you can do to really prevent it. I know a lot of people who obsess over picking up pennies, a lot of people who obsess over counting windows and stairs and stuff like that. And some people argue it as a superstition, while in reality, it could be a little bit of obsessive compulsive disorder. So I don't know. There's a lot to be said about OCD, and I think that we don't have a whole lot of time to talk about it because it's such a deep dive. But I think it's something that maybe we'll return to at another time, or, I might even tack on a little bit more at the end of this episode. But due to time and the fact that we had a little technological difficulty at the very beginning, we probably ought to cut the episode now because it's already after 11 and we started around 9:30. But I think I'll do that, man. I think I'll tack on a little more at the end of this episode, post-production, talk about OCD and some other stuff. So anyway, something else I thought was really interesting. We talked about a lot of superstitions on this episode. We didn't really delve into anything outside of, European or American superstitions. And I mean, there's a whole cornucopia out there about, Asian superstitions and other stuff. So, maybe we'll come back to superstitions sometime and do a part 3 on this. Who knows?
Yeah, like certain Asian cultures, you're you can only wipe your ass with your left hand because your right hand is the good hand, and wiping your butt's a dirty deed, and the sinful
Done
hand,
dirt cheap.
yeah. So
Yeah, I know a lot of cultures. You don't shake hands with a certain hand because that's your butt hand. So, yeah. And that being said, oddly enough, talking about kind of superstitions and little OCD as well. Back when COVID was just rampant and we were, about a year or so into it, I personally would have what I called my clean hand and my dirty hand because, we didn't know how this shit worked. If you touched the doorknob and touched your eyeball, would you end up in, an ER? So anything I wanted to do that would involve me opening doors or doing certain things or I'm touching public items and articles, I did it all with my left hand. That way, if I had an itch or, had to stick my finger in my eyeball or up my nose, I would do it with the right hand because that's the hand that, I'm right-handed. So then that would be the one that I would normally, reach up to scratch an itch or do something. And that way I wouldn't be touching, other people's dirty germs and then sticking it in my orifices.
yeah.
So I don't know, maybe a little OCD, maybe a little superstition. Who knows? Well, anyway, buddy, we're coming up on the eve of St. Patrick's Day. So what do you think? Next episode, should we talk about elves and wood sprites and some more of that kind of shit?
Yeah, why not, man?
Cool. Awesome. I think we shall. Well, until next time, folks, thank you for joining us. And if you're watching this episode live, thank you for enduring that first 15 minutes. I really am happy that my brother reached out and told us. So, yeah, this episode executively produced by my brother.
Good job, Kevin.
In the meantime, guys, yeah. And if you want to follow us on the other socials outside of YouTube, please check us out on Instagram at PXL Paranormal. We're well over 700 followers on there, so that's fantastic. Maybe the quest to 1,000 before next year might just happen. If you're on Facebook, please give us a follow. What?
We're already up to 242 subscribers on YouTube. Like, we were at
a shit, girl.
238, so we're up like 4, 5. So
nice, man. Hell yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, the followership is growing. I know we hit that kind of speed bump whenever we had to start the new feed on YouTube and everywhere else the audio podcast goes. But, we do really appreciate you guys following us and sticking with us. And of course, all you new listeners and followers as well. It's pretty fantastic. If you're on the Facebook, please check us out, the Pixelated Paranormal Podcast. Preston, you just talked about YouTube, so you beat me to it, baby. Yeah, look at that, man. Who knows? Maybe we'll hit 300 before our 7-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Ooh, man, what do you got on Daubers?
Look, folks, I'm going to have a moment to talk about Big Dob's Beard Balm and why you should use it. So if any takeaway that you have tonight from tonight's episode, I would want to refer you back to Judas Iscariot himself. See, the Bible doesn't really touch on this one important fact. And if I were a preacher and I was talking about Judas Iscariot and I was looking to my flock of sheep out into the crowd, I would tell you this. Judas was a scuzzy-looking, dirty, homeless, plebe.
Some bitch.
And Jesus, he was the man of the hour. He was Son of God himself. He was one good-looking, savvy son of a bitch. And do you know why that is? Do you know why Jesus was just shining with heavenly light? Because Jesus knew that he needed to look good. He needed to smell good. And the only way to get the beard of heavenliness was to use BigDobsBeardBomb.com. That's right. Jesus was a time traveler. So he knew I needed to go forward in time, find this guy called Dobbs, put his beard product in my face, and that way people will know that I truly am the Son of God. I mean, look at this beard. You can't lie with this shit, people. This is the beard. This is beard, heavenly beard. Smells good. Looks good.
Wow.
And old Judas Iscariot, he spilt salt on the table. He did some other dastardly shit. He was just a fucker all the way around, and his beard didn't look good. It didn't smell good. He probably had pig shit in it. Who knows? And so he became the betrayer. He's like, you know what? Fuck that guy. I want a good beard like that. So You need to bypass being like Judas. You just need to go do yourself a favor. Go over to BigDobsBeardBomb.com, use promo code PXLPARA, and get yourself some heavenly discounts, because that bad boy is going to get you 20% off your order, and you can pick yourself up scents like bay rum, fresh, citrus, mint, classic, and sweet tobacco. Get it all. Get it at Dobbs.
That may have been your longest promo for BigDobsBeardBomb.com.
Yeah.
And with that, I'll follow it up by saying, first of all, happy belated birthday to our buddy John. John just celebrated a birthday, I believe, yesterday. And
Happy
with
birthday,
that being
buddy.
said, please, if you're in the Wichita area, stop by and see his darling wife, our wonderful friend, Leslie, and the rest of the gang at CD Trade Post Pawnee in Seneca. All right, everybody. Don't step on a crack or you'll fall and break your back. With that, I raise my glass and say cheers to weird shit and those of us that love to talk about it.
And stay spooky and stay on the paranormal highway. The cast at Pixelated Paranormal would like to thank you for listening to this week's episode. Pixelated Paranormal is here to tell you tales of the fantastical, the strange, the unknown. Tales that will move you a little further down the paranormal highway. If you'd like to share your own listener story, we would love to hear it. Email us at pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. Again, that's pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. We'd really love to hear from you. Again, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.